The first preview of the 2024 college football season. And Dalton, you moved all the way out to Cincinnati, and you're going to be in studio from here on out, man. No longer do we have the two screens of me on one side and you on the other, man. We're doing everything in studio. And because of that, we get this beautiful studio to look at now. We got Haynes King, who kind of got messed up his face over there a little bit. It was fine. And DJ Wengele over here as well, man. So kind of utilizing the entirety of the PFF studio right now. But first of all, man, welcome to Cincinnati, dude.
Absolutely. First full day here. Just got here yesterday as of recording this. First game of the year, which is just so fitting, right? And obviously, we got a great game on Saturday coming. First day with the new graphics. Everything's first now. It's first all over again. Should we just not count last season as the first season?
No, nothing. Actually, the only thing that counts is me getting Michigan right of winning the national title.
Of course, yeah. So anything where you were right counts, and that makes actually a lot of sense. That sounds about like something you would do. Yeah, but no, it's great to be here. It's going to be a whole lot of fun to be here all season and to talk about all these games. And they really started us off in week 0 with a really good game in Ireland.
Usually they don't, man. Usually the week 0, like last year we had Notre Dame Navy, and it was like, okay, like it's like I'm excited to see Sam Hartman, but it's Navy. It's like, all right, this is a fun game, man, and I think it's gonna be really fun to see what goes on. Yeah, Dalton's now living in my building as well. We're not rooming together, but we're basically 2 floors apart, so basically rooming together. So yeah, man, I'm pumped for this year, man. It's gonna be a lot of fun, and it's gonna be a lot of fun in this game, man, because Florida State, number 10 in the country, after having an unbelievable season last year. Another thing that I called, by the way, was having Florida State as a really good team. But Florida State now, number 10 in the country. Can they live up to that hype? I think is the big storyline right now, because you got 10 of their 13 most valuable players from last year are gone, according to our wins above average metric. New quarterback in DJ Wengele, we just mentioned before. Their top 3 pass catchers are gone, and their leading rusher are gone. And then on defense, Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, Jarian Jones, Ronald Green, other guys too, they're all gone as well, man. So it's a brand new look Florida State team. It's why I'm a little weary of them being a top 10 team right now, because it's like, who the heck is the Florida State Seminoles this year, honestly?
Yeah, no, I mean, and I believe we had them at number 17, didn't we? And it almost felt like we ranked them almost out of obligation for what they accomplished last year, right? There's still some talented guys there. You got a new quarterback, Roydell Williams at running back, right? But we have a lot of questions about this team that we're not going to know till they're on the field, right? So it's really, you lose that much talent, and it's a shame that they had that much talent and didn't make the playoff or weren't selected for the playoff. We should say they should have made it, but no, I mean, they're one of the biggest mystery teams, maybe even more so for as much as a team like, say, Michigan lost offensively. Like, at least we still know what they have on defense. We really have no idea with Florida State, and I think any ranking of them is pretty much a guess at this point, no?
I think it absolutely is. So I'm really curious, because Georgia Tech is no pushover, man, honestly. Nope. So what we're going to do in these previews now, last year we kind of sometimes talk about the same matchups over and over again. We're not going to do that this year. Dalton's going to take one side of the ball. I'm going to take the other side of the ball, and kind of the biggest matchup to watch in this game. So, Dalton, you had the Georgia Tech offense against Florida State defense. What should we know when Haynes King and that offense is on the field?
So this is a really fun offense to watch, and it's a team that really turned their season around last year after, we talked last year a lot about when they beat Miami, and Miami didn't take the knee, and where Miami went from there. Well, we didn't talk much late in the year about where Georgia Tech went from there, and a lot of it was up, and they built a lot of momentum, made a bowl game, I believe it was UCF, really beat UCF big time in their bowl game, and this team is built around their run game, right? I've called them the law firm. You've got Haynes in the backfield. You've got Haynes King. You've got Jamal Haynes. And what makes this work, look, Max, over their last 6 games last year, they were 3rd in the country in rushing grade. These two guys are really, really dynamic, but what it's centered on is Haynes King's ability at quarterback to take any run as far as he wants. I mean, he's got 50, 60, 70-yard runs in him, right? He's incredibly explosive. He's a great athlete, and he can throw the ball downfield too, but this offense is centered around him, and the number of different looks that you get, they run the 3rd most option plays of any team in the Power 5. There's a constant 3-way threat between, it could be Jamal Haynes, it could be a jet sweep with somebody like Malik Rutherford, it could be Haynes keeping the ball, it could be Haynes throwing the ball over, Haynes King, I should say, throwing the ball over your head. I'm going to do that all year with the two of them. But this is an issue. This is the number one issue when you're playing against Georgia Tech, is figuring out this option game. And for as simple as it sounds, who the hell has the football? Yeah. Which one has the football? And the problem is, if you delay for a split second, they've got a ton of speed. They're an undersized team. They have a boatload of speed outside, inside, Jamal Haynes, Haynes King, everybody. And honestly, Florida State's their secondary was one of the 5 best, maybe 3 best in the country last season. The run defense had a little bit more cracks in it, right? And And you could run on them if you had this sort of offense, right?
What was that game Boston College ran all over them, right?
Castellanos,
Yes.
yeah. And Thomas Castellanos
And that was
gave
an
problems.
option too, yeah.
Jaden Daniels, even though they didn't run the ball as much in that game when they played LSU in week 1, but they had a hard time containing Jaden Daniels. At a certain point with Daniels, they just said, we just won't rush him. Just stay in the pocket. Cool, right? Or even Kyron Drones, even though Trey Benson, I believe it was, went crazy on Vatek. And they had a hard time with Kyron Drones running the ball too. They didn't play a ton of mobile quarterbacks, but when they did, they had some issues. And just to highlight the difference in when Florida State has to go against plays with an option and without an option in it, mostly read option, but there's some other different things too, right? You know, you think about like all the stuff even a Gus Malzahn has in his offense. That's the stuff that Georgia Tech does, right? So when Florida State did not see an option in the run play that they were facing, 23rd best run D grade in the country, right? Really good. When there was an option involved, that dropped to 48th, much more average, right? And the big thing that I was seeing is that it's their linebackers, right? So last year you had DJ Lundy, who's still there, and then you had Tatum Bethune and Kalen DeLoach, who went to the NFL, right? But these were the guys that struggled in those situations, all right? And what you had, when those guys did not see an option, they're very downhill linebackers. They want to stay in their gap, and they just want to hit people, right? They're hammers, right? You mentioned the Boston College game. They had a lot of problems with misdirection and things like that, and the option with Thomas Castellanos in that game. But when they didn't see an option last year, their linebackers had the best run defense grade in the country. Number one.
Wow.
Better than Bama, better than Georgia, better than Michigan. Number one. When things are straight up and right in front of them, they were spectacular. When there was an option involved, especially a read option, that drops all the way to 57th. They become really, it's just
Wow.
they don't. It's a crew that doesn't always like moving side to side or waiting on their heels and reading and scraping and doing all those things. They want to get in their gap, and they're sledgehammers. They're really good football players, and arguably the best run defender of all of them, DJ Lundy, stayed in school after also flirting with transferring, I believe it was to Colorado, or he did, and he came back.
I think so.
Did he
yeah.
pull a Caden Proctor on us? Was something like that?
I know Colorado was going there. I don't know if he ever enrolled there, but I remember he entered the portal and committed to Colorado, and then he backed out of it. So yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you had that. So they were lucky enough to keep him, but this is going to be a big story. Is watching DJ Lundy and their linebackers, and even the rest of their front seven with Patrick Payton staying around, with Jared Verse gone, but that's what they have to do, because I think this game, and you're about to mention it on the other side, this game's going to come down to who can get to the run schemes and who can impose their will in the run game. And if you let Georgia Tech do that and you get ahead with these option threats and everything Haynes King can give you, really a three-way go when you talk about give and keep or throw it over your head, there's a lot of problems that this Georgia Tech offense creates, and a lot of it starts with their run game.
That's a great point, man, because I totally forgot about how much Florida State struggled with like quarterbacks that can run last year. You mentioned Drones, you mentioned Thomas Castellanos, and Haynes King can obviously do that as well. Yeah, it's a dangerous proposition, man. Especially with Braden Fisk gone, you got Jared Verse gone as well. They've lost some key pieces in that front seven. So I'm curious to see how they handle it this year. My matchup to watch is basically the same thing on the other side of the ball. Is I think Florida State has an opportunity here to expose Georgia Tech a little bit in that run game. Georgia Tech last year allowed 5.8 yards per carry and 2.6 yards before contact per attempt. So 2.5 yards before they even touched the running back last year. That was the second worst mark among all Power 5 schools. Both those, yards per carry and yards before contact per attempt. And you look at Florida State, man, they have the offensive line to move people in the ground game. I rank them as a top 10 offensive line in the country. There's a lot of really good players in that offensive line, like Darius Washington at left tackle, Jeremiah Byers at right tackle. I like Maurice Smith at center. I like Richie Leonard, the transfer they got from Florida, at left guard, Keandre Jones as well, TJ Ferguson, the transfer from Alabama. It's a lot to like about that Florida State offensive line. And yeah, they lost Trey Benson, obviously, is a big loss. But Lawrence Toafili last year averaged almost 7 yards per carry and 4.3 yards after contact per carry as the number 2 running back. So I think he's in for a big year as the number 1 running back for Florida State. And they also brought in Roydell Williams from Alabama. He was 7th in the SEC last year with 3.4 yards after contact per attempt. So you're talking about a vulnerable Georgia Tech run D from last year that didn't really improve too much in the portal, in my opinion, either. And you have a top 10 offensive line in the country, a running back in Lawrence Toafili who, even when he's contacted, he's getting 4 yards after contact per carry. Roydell Williams is getting 3 yards after contact per carry. So I think Florida State's going to let them, get downfield before contact And then even after contact, they can break tackles, right? So I'm a little worried about that Georgia Tech run D against Florida State in this game, man.
Yeah, no, and honestly, I'm glad you mentioned Tofili, too. He's actually a guy down from the St. Pete area that I forget if it was for 2 or 3 years. I had to coach against him. Yeah. It was not fun at all. He ran for 200 yards on us. Like, every time we saw him, he's really, really good. We knew, look, he's got the speed to break it. He's really resilient, and I think this could be a breakout year for him because down in high school, they ran like an old school like wing tee offense. They had like literally 6 plays in their playbook, and he just had to pretty much beat his head against the wall. So you kind of knew it was going to be a big adjustment to college for him, where there's like so many schemes that he didn't run in high school. But I can tell you firsthand, I've seen it in person too many times that he's really, really talented, and he was a good receiver for them last year too. He can do some things both ways, so he's going to be a critical part of their offense.
Yeah, absolutely will, man. So I know a lot of people are excited to see how DJ does in his first game, but I just really think that it's going to be a running game for both these teams, man, Dalton. So what is your ultimate prediction for the first big game of the college football season?
This is a really hard one. For me, they started this off really tough because I know from what I've seen, Florida State's something like a 12-point favorite.
I think so.
I don't believe in that at all. I think it's going to be a really, really tight game, and I think there's some serious upset potential here. If Florida State, we've mentioned it, whichever team scores first, gets ahead early, gets the run game going early, it's a big factor. This was honestly, even right now, I'm kind of picking this right now. Usually I'm prepared with this beforehand, but this game is so tight to me. I think it's going to be really like within a field goal game.
Wow.
I'm going to take the upset. I'm going to take Georgia Tech. We're going to start a season. We're going to start a season of chaos off with a game of chaos, and I don't know what to make of Florida State. And the one thing for me, there's a couple of keys here. If Georgia Tech is going to win, obviously get the run game going, but there are going to be moments where they have smaller receivers, right? Eric Singleton's really talented.
Yes.
Malik Rutherford's really talented, great feet, especially in the screen game. But because they're smaller, they're playing a team with that plays a lot of press coverage. Florida State's real famous for their press man coverage, right? So if they can beat that, and then if Haynes King can just keep the turnovers down, because that's the one thing. I believe he threw 16 interceptions last year. If he goes for 1 or 0 turnovers, I do believe Georgia Tech's going to win this game. I think their running game is a huge problem. I think they're going to catch a lot of these inexperienced Florida State guys in the front 7 off guard. I'm going to take Georgia Tech 27-24. I think it's going to be a razor-thin margin. I really do. I'm not really understanding why Florida State's a 12-point favorite. I was back and forth on who's. To me, it's a coin flip. I really think it could be a coin flip game. I'm going to take the Yellow Jackets just to take the underdog in the chaos early in the season.
I love that, man. It's right now, so I'm looking at it. I think it's now a 10.5 point spread. So I think it moved down a little bit, maybe because we were.
They heard us just now.
Yeah, exactly. They're moving it down, but I'm taking Florida State in this game. I think they're going to win. I actually have them right around that spread. I had 34-24 as my projected final score. I know Florida State's a complete unknown, but I think they just have too much talent on both sides of the ball for Georgia Tech to handle, and I really think Lawrence Tofili is in for a big game, and I think that Georgia Tech run D is very vulnerable, and I think that Florida State could take advantage of that, and DJ can make enough throws out there that I think the Seminoles will get out on top. But man, if a top 10 team going down on the opening Saturday of college football would be hot.
This is good. I think this is going to be a razor thin margin game.
I can see it,
and I think it does. There's part of it that comes down to who gets ahead first. Whoever gets ahead first, and I know I say this for several games throughout the year. It's going to be a massive advantage to establish the run game and then keep it going. Because if Georgia Tech gets in their wheelhouse and they've got you on your heels, they can score a ton of points even on the ground, right? But turnovers are going to be big though with both quarterbacks, right? Yep. And I know Uiagalelei got a lot better keeping the turnovers down last year, so that helps. Haynes King though, I mean that's really the big thing for him. He can put up huge positive numbers, but you just can't have that many turnovers. If Florida State wins, I think their secondary and some of the guys that they still have back there, Azarie Thomas and Fentrell Cypress and Shaim Brown, I think those guys are going to play a big part in a Florida State win if they get there.
I'm with you, man. So, folks, we finally made it. The first preview of the college football season. We are finally here. We have actual games to talk about on Saturday. Cannot wait for it. We're doing this for every single week of college football. I believe actually in a live show format on Tuesday. So I'm very excited about that as well. And also, I think we're doing a review show on Sunday mornings as well. So that's going to be a lot of fun as well. So be on the lookout for that. We're actually going to do more. We're only previewing this game for week 0 because unfortunately there's not a lot besides this game to get excited about. But every week from now on, about at least 5 games every week we're going to preview. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So be on the lookout for that every single week in college football. But we are finally freaking here, guys. College football is here. And that is our preview of the best game of week 0, number 10 Florida State against Georgia Tech.